Julia, I learned from our cooperation when you was
Yeah.
a project manager, I was a freelancer, from the text and images I see on your Instagram and Facebook page, from the way you balance your work and leisure, that you're a super creative person
Yeah.
who exercises a so-called everyday creativity. I'm sure about it.
Okay.
Tell us a couple of words about yourself, please.
So hello everybody. My name is Julia. I am English officially by birth, but I consider myself to be part French at least, because that's where I grew up. I spent 16 years in the south of France until I was 18. I then went back to the UK to study and lived there and worked there for about, I think it was about 10 or 12 years. And I've recently moved to the Netherlands, where I now work as a full-time freelance translator.
What about your life motto?
I don't know if I have a motto per se, but I would have to say it's about balance. I I am ambitious in the sense that I take pride in what I do. I enjoy my work, and I think I need to enjoy my work. But ultimately, it's not what defines me entirely. I don't work 20-hour days, and I've never been particularly interested in doing that. I want to enjoy myself and balance life.
You recently published a website. So congrats with your website. And it has a Slack one-page design, and it has all the basic information your potential clients may need. How did you come up with the idea that you need a website?
It came out of me having a quiet phase a couple of months ago. I'd had a few jobs here and there, but there was nothing big on the horizon, and I wasn't too worried because things always fluctuate. But I thought I don't want to just not work at all. So that's sort of when I thought, well, that's a useful thing to have. I've never really made the time to design one before. And in terms of how I get my clients, it's mostly word of mouth, connections, networking. I know it sounds a bit unusual, but I didn't really think I'll make a website in order to get clients. But I think it was more to sort of give credibility to what I'm already doing. So it's something I can have on my LinkedIn page, I can put it on my CV, and it just sort of officializes what I already do.
Now I want to move to the question that interests me the most.
Of course. Yep.
As I'm one of your followers on Instagram, I was watching your trips around Europe and Asia with a vivid interest. And I always wondered, how did you manage to balance between enjoying your amazing trips, enjoying nature, enjoying food? I know you're a foodie.
Yeah, of course.
And doing your work.
I'm more someone who will, in terms of big trips, sort of several months, I'm someone who will save and work hard and then say to my clients, look, I'm taking a couple of months off. And I'll do that as, I will just focus on the fun part, and then I know I'll go back and work again. So I'm sort of work, not work, work. I have friends who have not left their laptop at home for a holiday in years, and they always have their laptop with them. But for me, I need a break, like a sort of real separation between the two. But in terms of if it's sort of a shorter break, or, for example, visiting family in France, which, even though it is a holiday, I don't really consider a holiday, then I will take my laptop and I'll manage to combine both in those circumstances. I've done 4 or 5 month trips, mostly around Asia. But I have to say, one was before I did my master's, so a long time ago. And the other one was a couple of years ago, and that was during my transition between a full-time employee and freelance. So I had a few people I was working for, but it wasn't the same situation as now. if I were to go on another long trip like that, I'm not sure how I would approach it, or if I could, because I don't want to be forgotten if I go away for a long period. But when I go, recently I was away for about 3 weeks, and I will make sure to tell people in advance, my regular clients I work with, weekly or at least monthly, I will say, look, at the end of the month, I'm going away for a few weeks, just so you know, and then I'll have an out of office. And I do keep my phone on me. So if there's something really urgent or someone forgets, I can occasionally reply to an email and say, look, I'm away.
You prefer just to recharge your batteries,
yeah,
and then come back and work with the double force, or?
Yeah. No, that's it. And I feel like mentally that doing it that way, I get more space to sort of, okay, I can be in this moment and enjoy this, and then I can come back and I can be excited about going back to work, because I've stopped, and I enjoy that.
Do you collaborate with other translators, with your colleagues? Do
Yes.
you share work? At a conference, Ellen Singer, she called this job sharing with other translators cross-pollination.
Okay, it's a nice term, yeah.
So what do you think about cross-pollination?
I think it's something that's extremely important. I remember during my master's, our main lecturer, she was sort of in charge of the course, said something to us quite early on, along the lines of, make sure you stay in contact with people you study with, because it means you don't know where people will end up, and contacts in our industry are key. So that was something I kept in mind. No, so it's very important, because you don't know who is going to do what, who's going to work in what company. But the other thing, I wrote some notes about this, was that we can be self-sufficient, and we can be happy working on our own and things, but there are various elements that make it important to speak to other people and to share work. I think there's a common misconception, perhaps, of competition. It is a competitive field. There's people that go in with lower rates, or there's just hundreds of people or thousands of people that do the same work as you. But I think if you have a few key people that, for example, you're happy to recommend because you know their work. I wouldn't recommend someone if you haven't worked with them before, because your reputation is at stake. Okay. But if you recommend them, they will recommend you. They're also someone that you can call on if you get stuck, if you have a problem, if your software doesn't open a file. It can make you look good with clients if, for whatever reason you're unavailable to take on a job. You can say, but my trusted colleague so and so might be able to help. And I think we have each other's back, and that's important. You want to communicate with that person and not try and undercut them or go behind their back and steal jobs off them, because I don't think that's productive in any way. But the other aspect I think that's important is a lot of freelancers work from home. Okay. And because we don't have colleagues in the same way as you do in an office, it can get a bit lonely, or you can get up too much in your own head. And I think having someone who knows what you're talking about can just be a comfort. You can moan. There's always going to be frustration, like any job. You can just moan, oh, this happened. And there's someone who understands exactly why that would be annoying. And on top of that, they might actually be able to help. They said, oh, well, I've had this once and I did this, and it kind of, made the situation better. And for me, it's something I really value. And I've got one person that's exactly the same as me, same services, same languages. And we we always recommend each other for work. We ask each other questions. Do you think this is appropriate? How would you react to this?
What would you say to young translators, to translators who only start their career? What would you recommend? How would you cheer them up in our age of machine translation?
In terms of machine translation and sort of feeling possibly a bit redundant, I guess the advice to give would be to possibly go into a field that requires creativity, something that a machine for now can't do, that requires a certain sensitivity, be it subtitling, or be it more marketing stuff, or something that's sort of, I think technical translation is not something I particularly enjoy. It requires a huge amount of skill, but it's much more formulaic. And for me, I would be more worried, I think, if I worked in that field. So I think in terms of if people are thinking about which direction to go in or what to specialize in, that is something to bear in mind. Things that are creative are much harder to replace humans with. But in terms of just general advice, I think, again, the same tutor I mentioned earlier, she told us something that's very simple, but it always stuck with me. And that was, be good at what you do and be nice about it. You do good quality work, you always deliver on time, you respond, you're polite, you're friendly. It doesn't guarantee you every job in the world, but it means that people will enjoy working with you. And because there's so much competition, that is really important. You want to be someone that's easy to deal with, that's amenable, that's friendly. And I think that does get you a long way. It's worked for me.